Hey guys, and welcome back to Amygdala's Bane. So today we will be talking about personality psychology. And our qualifications are that we have personalities, and we know people with personalities, we think, at least. I believe so. Maybe. We're not sure. But anyways, yes, very qualified, very good. So today, in this episode, we'll be covering different topics like the Myers-Briggs test, which is a very popular personality test. We'll be talking about the Big Five personality traits. We'll also be discussing astrology and how that's become linked to figuring out our personality traits. And I think that's pretty much it. Kazi won't really tell me what exactly we're covering in this episode. He says it'll come up in conversation, whatever the hell that means.
We're basically going to be talking about what kind of bread are you, BuzzFeed quizzes throughout this podcast.
For 30 minutes.
For 30 minutes, it'll be me and Gule talking about what kind of bread are you, what kind of fries are you. It is criminal that I am not a curly fry and they gave me a straight fry, normal
He's really upset about that. You guys might hear about that a lot in this episode.
That is just the episode.
It's just Kazi ranting about being regular French fries.
So, I'm an Aquarius and, Gule is a... What are you, Gule?
Cancer.
Are you like a Cancer? Do you relate with Cancers?
Well, Cancers are supposed to be, heartwarming and loving and very emotional, and they have a lot of mood swings, and they tend to be too sensitive. So, yes, I think so. I think I might have a problem.
I'm not sure if I vibe with Aquarius energy. It's like the weirdos. And it's like so I'm not like that. I'm just like everyone else.
I'm sure. Yes.
I'm just so normal.
Yes.
So I don't really vibe with that energy. And I don't know, Aquariuses are also they're called Aquariuses, but they're an air sign.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
Aqua. Rius. What are you in Briar-Miggs?
Myers-Briggs.
What are you supposed to be?
I'm what's that thing called? The mediator, which is I think INFJ.
What the hell does that mean?
I think.
What was that personality name?
I took that test ages ago, but basically it's the person who is N means that I'm really intuitive, I means I'm very introverted, and I'm really sensitive to other people's emotions, and I usually mediate the conflict within a situation. So I'll be the one to try to de-escalate it, taking into account the feelings of both sides. That's basically the summary of it.
I'm I don't know what mine is. I remember it was just person who speaks.
I don't think that was it. Wait, what was it called?
It was a protagonist. It was
inspiring leader.
Inspiring leader of speaker of words.
And you're obviously very good at that.
I don't know. We saw some kind of podcast type thing, and there was this psychologist lady, and she was I don't like Myers-Briggs. It's not real.
Yeah, she said it's not valid, because one of the she said there were multiple reasons that it's not valid, but one of the reasons she said is that it takes extraversion in the wrong way. In the sense that she says that it's not possible for someone to be energized by a social event. Now, I don't know how accurate that is, but that was her opinion. But she was it's not that extroverts get energized by social interactions, just that they prefer it to being alone. But it doesn't necessarily mean you get energy from going to a party, because that doesn't make logical sense.
So what we're trying to say is, I'm coming at all you people who talk about your social battery. It's not a real thing. Y'all just don't like people.
Okay.
She literally just said you can't charge up your thing.
No, she said that you can't charge up your thing to social interaction.
So no battery.
There is a battery.
There is no battery.
There's a battery because you still get tired from interacting with social people, which means there is a social battery, but the social battery cannot be recharged by being more social.
I don't think so. No.
You cannot overload the system. That's not how it works.
I disagree. It's just because it's just because I don't feel like you change your opinion. You either want to be around people or you don't.
No, but it depends on if you're suppose you're really, really, really tired. You don't want to hang out with people even if they're your closest
Yeah, but that's
friends.
not my social battery running out. If I'm really, really tired, I'm really, really tired.
But sometimes after for me, if I have met my friends for 3 weeks consecutively over weekends, then my social battery is.
But you're tired of those people. It's
I'm not
the
tired of
social
the
battery.
people. I interact with those people for 6 hours every day in school, and I
also
literally only like going to school because I'm going to interact with those people. I'm not sick of the people. I'm just sick of the social interaction because for me,
Yeah, but
it
you're
takes
socially
a lot
interacting at school too.
Yeah, but it's
What's
not
the difference
same
between
thing.
socially interacting at
It doesn't feel the
school?
same. I don't know if it's because like I don't know if it's like this for every introvert, but like for me, it's just that school is like part of my routine. So like interacting with people at home right now with my family, that's still technically social interaction. I'm interacting with other people, but it doesn't tire me out in the same way because it's part of my routine. Just like school, it's part of my routine. It doesn't tire me the same way. But going to like a restaurant and hanging out with your friends or something, that will tire me out.
I mean, that's not my gig. Like,
yeah, no. You're
not my gig. I like going out.
Yeah, you like.
I'm a pretty extroverted person.
Yeah, yeah, but that's just.
I mean, that's just how it is.
That is just how it is.
That's like a big five thing too, right? What is their things?
Okay, so the big five covers many of the points that the Myers-Briggs covers. Like, so they basically talk about extroversion or extraversion.
Extroversion, I think.
It's both.
Whatever.
Whatever.
It is.
So it talks about that. It talks about how extroverted or introverted you are, or if you're an ambivert, and it talks about then you have. It's basically like you can remember it with the acronym OCEAN. So you have O for openness to experience. So and then you have C is what is that really hard to pronounce? Conscientiousness. And then you have extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So basically how that works is I saw this video at like 5 a.m. last night because Kazi told me not to research, and I listened for a while, but then I panicked, obviously, and then I started researching
That makes sense.
at 3 a.m. So basically the video described it in terms of the big five personalities being stranded on an island and how they would tackle the situation if they were stranded on an island, or how they would react to being stranded on an island. So like the person who was who ranked high on openness to experience found the situation exciting because it was new, and they wanted to discover the island. They wanted to explore it. They started like figuring out how to build shelter and stuff. Like it was like a new experience. They wanted to take advantage of this new opportunity. And people who are open to experience will usually be like more creative and more what's the word? Thinking outside the box. I don't know what the word is for that, but yeah.
Quirky girls.
I don't think that's
I
don't think that's a scientific term.
That's
for
the scientific term
okay,
for it.
Okay, that's written in the book of the book of psychology.
The book of psychology. There's only one. There's only one book of psychology.
The sacred book of psychology.
And the only word is quirky girls.
Yes, that is correct. That's how psychology works.
That
We
is how
studied it,
psychology
and we're telling you that's how that works. Okay, then you have conscientiousness, which is basically in terms of how you organize yourself. So they're really self-disciplined, they're responsible, they start getting so when they're stranded on the island, they'll be the ones to organize everybody, tell them what to do, list out the essential tasks that need to be completed, like the supplies you need, and like water, food, shelter, all of that, basically, what you're supposed to do to become organized in that situation. And then you have... What's E?
Extroverted.
Yes. The extroverted person will just want to like... Well,
Be
the way
extroverted. On
Yes.
an alone island, he will make imaginary friends and go to parties.
No, but all those people are stranded together. So it's like how they would interact with each other if they were all ranked high for each of those big five personality traits. So the extrovert was like, after they gathered all their stuff, he wanted all of them to go in a group and explore the island and, just have fun and interact with each other. And just get to know his fellow crew members better. Then there's the Ocean.
Neuroticism.
No, agreeableness.
There's an on. Okay, yeah.
Okay, agreeableness, basically, they're known for
Agreeing.
agreeing. Yes, basically. So on the island, whenever anyone needs help, they ask the agreeableness person. I'm just going to call him...
Agree.
What?
Agree.
Agree, yeah, okay. They call Agree, and he will usually say yes to helping them, and he will, what's that word with a C? Compromise?
But he's agreeing to... but he's agreeing to everything, so he'll compromise
so
everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
So, that's what he tends to do. And he's also, like, more attuned to other people's feelings, especially when they're upset. So, the person who's neurotic like higher on the neurotic scale, he or she or they will usually be comforting them. And the person who is scaled high on neuroticism basically spends most of the time feeling anxious and scared and worried, and basically neuroticism is like the negative feelings or the negative reaction towards a certain stimuli. So someone who's high in neuroticism has a greater tendency towards reacting negatively. Like if something goes wrong, they'll feel really anxious, and this can hinder their performance because like they tend to think they can't do something before they can do it, or when they're in a bad situation, they panic too much, and that creates a bad scenario for them. So basically someone who's high on neuroticism would not react kindly or well to being stranded on an island.
I feel like, you know what? I feel like with all of these personality tests, like no matter how valid they are, I don't know. I
They
feel
can't
like
always get it 100%.
obviously they can't get 100%, but like you don't need. Why do you need someone to tell you what your personality is? I don't understand. Like, I understand that it's fun and stuff to be like, oh, what's my astrology chart? But like, I don't understand the purpose of, I don't know, dictating your life based on what these websites are saying. Like, I know, like, some people who take astrology to a point where they're like, I won't even be friends with a whatever. I don't know I don't know astrology. So they're like, I won't even be friends with like an Aries or whatever. I don't know what astrology is. So like whatever they're saying. So I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. Like I get as human beings, we're like we like being like told like this is your personality, this is what you need to work on. But like going off nothing. Like even if you like look at like this personality psychologist speaking, they're like, don't do like that.
Yeah. There's still a lot of research to be done in that field too, and I think that people like those tests not only because like it is fun to do it in the first place, but I feel like a lot of us aren't really sure of who we are, even if we don't like to admit that, and those tests just make you feel like, oh yeah, I relate to that. That makes you feel like, okay, I know myself. Then you see points that you don't identify with, but you're like, maybe I didn't notice that about myself. Or maybe I'm supposed to be like that. And it's not necessarily right to, twist yourself according to the personality, but I feel like it's just like, the personality test gives you a set direction on how to be.
See, but they're broad enough that you can relate to anything. So, like, you can open a random astrology, like, sign, and you'll relate to something because it's so broad.
Yeah.
These people have lots of positive traits, but they might also have some negative traits.
Oh my god.
This is me.
OMG.
These people like to go out, but sometimes they're tired. Oh my god. It's me. So, like, they're so broad that no matter what you open, you can relate to them.
Yeah.
And then even when you go into, like, when people, like, make the criticism that you need, like, your chart thing with, like, your sun and your moon and your Virgo and whatever the hell to make it more precise, even when you read those, they're so broad that even then you can relate to almost anything. And then, I don't know, like, how does the Big Five work? Do you, like, take a test and they, like, score you on, like, everything?
Yeah.
Is it like a score?
Yeah. It's like a score for each thing. So, what's your score on extroversion?
So you can fail.
What's your score on...
You can get, like, a...
Kazi, don't do this.
So
don't do this.
Fail?
No.
It's like a
No.
test.
It's not failing, because if you score low on extroversion, that means you're an introvert.
fail.
That's not a
So if you get low on extroversion, you fail the test.
You don't fail the test. You are introvert.
It's like the depression test. If you don't... you failed.
I think it's good to fail the depression test.
I'm not talking about if it's good or not, but you are failing.
Okay, fine.
You have to live with that. You have to live with that.
You have to live with failing the depression test.
There it is.
I'm sure that's really hard. That must be really difficult.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like also when we're getting into like personality stuff, like, I don't know, just like reading stuff and like, is there anything you would ever read that would make you question your relationship with someone? Like if you take like if a personality psychologist came up to both of you, did your research and said you two are the most uncompatible person I've ever met in my life, don't meet each other, would that make you reconsider your friendship?
I don't think so. Not really. I mean, I expect to know the person well enough to know if we're compatible or not, to sense if we're compatible or not based on experiences that we have with each other. So I wouldn't do it just because, like, I know people who are like, oh, I'll never date a Libra or something like that, and I don't really understand that because it doesn't make sense. Like,
when we're doing like sociology or something, these kind of astrology and these kind of movements, you call them they're like grouped in with new religious movements. So I feel like, especially in places like, so you see like astrology being really popular in places in America like California. So like I think it's like, I think as humans you you need to know like what it helps to know what you need to improve and what you need to be like.
Yeah.
So like in the absence of traditionalist religions, I feel like that comes in to tell you what you need to be like. So I feel like that's where it's coming from.
That's an interesting point, actually.
That's where I feel it's coming from.
That makes sense.
And then I don't know, I feel like if you just get along with someone, then like get along with someone. There's a difference. Like anyone can be like, you can be the most compatible people on earth, but if it doesn't work, it just doesn't work.
Exactly. It doesn't matter if the charts say like, oh, Cancer and like, I don't know, maybe a Capricorn or something are meant to be together. If you don't relate with the person or anything, then it's just not going to happen. And again, they are pretty broad, so they're not really that accurate.
And then there's a difference between that and then like personality disorders. So like when you're going into psychopathy or sociopathy, there's a difference between those things and then a diagnosis. You can't be diagnosed with Aquarius. Oh my God, you're such an Aquarius. You just can't get along with these people. That's why your mental health is being affected because you're an Aquarius.
Oh, you're an Aquarius. That explains why you didn't fail the depression test.
There it goes.
No, but like there was even this study. I don't remember the name of it now because I read it at 5 a.m.
That makes sense.
But this study basically took a bunch of like renowned astrologers in their field, and they gave them like a blind test to like they watched a few clips and they saw a few pictures to be able to predict someone's sign based on what they themselves believe, and they couldn't. Like they failed miserably. So, I mean, that's just more evidence that it's not actually necessarily accurate. You can relate to any point.
I mean, of course it's not accurate.
Yeah.
There is no...
Even astrologers cannot tell just by observing someone's behavior if they're an Aquarius or a Cancer.
I mean, yeah, it's all...
So,
I mean,
like,
I don't know what to tell you. You're basing things on literally nothing.
Yeah.
At least Maya Briggs asked you a question and stuff. You're basing astrology on literally nothing.
You're literally basing it on when you were born.
So there's...
I mean,
like, literally
do you not
nothing.
know people who were like born in the same month as you that are completely different from you?
My point here is that if you believe that, good for you, have some fun time. But what I'm trying to say is like believe whatever you want to believe. But like if you're at a point where you're like, I don't want to meet someone because they're a certain sign, I think you
need to reevaluate.
You need to reevaluate what you're believing. Like you're taking it too far at that point.
Yeah.
Like it's just stars. Like it's not that serious. I know it's fun and stuff, but it's really not that serious. And then that, and then you have like a actual personality disorders like psychopathy or sociopathy.
Psychopathy comes under the what's that word? Antisocial disorder. It comes under that for the what's it called?
DSM-5.
Yeah, that one. I should know that. That's one thing I should know actually. But there's actually there's a lot of what's the word? I don't know what the word is, but there's a lot of confusion about the difference between psychopathy and sociopathy. And the main difference is that, and also narcissism sometimes gets confused with those. So all three will have people that they tend to be very self-absorbed, or they seek a lot of validation. They might seem to lack empathy, stuff like that. But the difference is that a narcissist will experience remorse. They will experience remorse, they will experience guilt, they can experience those emotions if they do something wrong. But a psychopath and a sociopath will not experience remorse. And the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath is that a psychopath is born and a sociopath is made. What that means is a psychopath basically is, I forgot the word, what the nervous system was called. Wait. I don't remember what the nervous system was called.
Endocrine?
No, I don't think it started with an O. Autonomic. I don't know how it's pronounced. I also don't know how it's spelled, but anyway.
Makes sense.
Anyways, autonomic or something. Autonomic nervous system, which is basically which includes the sympathetic nervous system and the flight or fight response. So what that means is that when you do something wrong, for people who have like a healthy mind, you will experience a faster heart rate or sweating or something like that to show like it's a natural reaction to your guilt or remorse. But a psychopath cannot feel that. Because that's just how their brain is wired. It's just how their nervous system is different than ours.
Do you give them psychology juice to fix that?
What?
Psychology juice,
What's
like the medicines and stuff. You like give them some psychology juice.
Acha, okay. Yes, Kazi, you just pump them full of psychology.
Yeah, like
juice.
every time they need to feel sad, you give like, here's the sad medicine.
Acha, okay. No, Kazi.
Is that how you live? No.
Kazi, that's not how it works. Okay. That's not. There's
What's
still
the
a lot
problem?
of-
Is their brain not making does their brain not contain the connections for them to feel remorse?
Yeah, basically. It's
But
just
sociopaths
like-
have that, but those connections have been worn away.
Exactly.
Okay.
They've been trained to not feel that connection anymore. That's supposed to help them feel those emotions. So a psychopath is born with that. So that's why, like, to be diagnosed as a psychopath, it has to be before the age of 15. There has been a history of, like, lack of empathy.
But I feel like
or violence.
even being a psychopath, being diagnosed with that is like difficult because
Yeah.
your whole point is like you are sympathetic. You're like you put on a front.
Exactly. And for a sociopath, it'll be that, like, so an example that Dr. Ramani, a psychologist that I watched, she basically said that an example could be like if you're born into a family of, like, suppose you're born into a criminal family and you're trained in the ways of being criminal because you have to take over the family business. You might feel remorse in the beginning for, like, stealing or doing something wrong, but you've been trained your whole life to not feel those emotions. So then you slowly transition into the sociopath side where you don't feel the remorse or the heart or, like, the guilt.
I feel
That's
like
why, like,
also,
psychopaths can also, they can pass a lie detector test because their heart does not beat faster if they lie. Because they don't have that response.
I mean, I feel like that's like true for like us too in some ways, because like you have to like I don't want to use the word get over, but like you have to become numb to some certain things. Like even in our situation, like
Yeah.
like if you're living in a place like us in like a developing country, like you have to get to a point where there'll be like 10 beggars on the street saying like give me money because I haven't had food in 10 days, and eventually you get to a point where like it doesn't even like you don't even think about it. Like you pass them without even thinking about it, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. You have to learn how to do that, because if you start at some point you have to be like, I cannot help people. I just can't help everyone. It's just not physically possible. So like we like have to like numb ourselves to that. Like especially if you're going in a developing country, like it's just part of the gig. You have to make yourself numb to that. Okay. Do you think people don't get along because of certain, like, are there personality types that can just never work with each other?
Well, I mean, yeah. There's personality clash. Like, you see it sometimes. Like my brother with one of his teachers, there was a personality clash. They just couldn't get along. She was a good teacher. He was a good student. And he still got good grades in the class. She was still, like, respectable and stuff. But there was a personality clash. There was no connection there. So, I mean, there can always be a personality clash. But like, I feel like it's hard to predict. Just that you end up realizing that you just can't really, you know.
Do you subscribe by the opposites attract personality thing?
No.
You don't subscribe by that?
No.
I feel like I do. I feel like honestly like I feel like they just attract each other. I feel like it just works.
It's interesting.
I feel like it works. I feel like
sometimes it works.
I feel like personality. I feel like if you just look at it, okay, like if both of us took a test, I feel like it would be like on the absolute opposite spectrum. So like if we took the ocean thing, and we're pretty good friends. If like we took the ocean thing, like all of our things would be like polar opposites.
Yeah.
I feel like polar opposites attract each other. That's what I've always felt. I don't know. I feel like because subconsciously, like you're trying to balance out your own things.
That is a fair point, but I don't think it's like a rule that opposites attract. Like, it's not always the case, and sometimes people you're more similar with, like, there will always be a common ground. It won't be you are completely different. Like me and you, when we take the Myers-Briggs, we're both in like I don't know what it's called, but we're in the green.
The green thing.
The green thing. We're in the green thing, so that means we have some common ground there, which makes us compatible. So, I mean, I'm not saying that people who are in, like, different colors of the Myers-Briggs won't get along. I'm just saying that sometimes there are too many opposites and you can't... It's too opposite to attract, basically. You have too many differences, and if you can't... Like, when you have differences, the thing is you need to learn to respect differences. And if you can't respect differences with someone, then you won't work, no matter
I
how
mean,
much.
not just about respecting things. It's about what you need as a person too. So let's say that you're the most extroverted person in the group, and you like speaking the most, and like you like being the center of attention and stuff. If you have two people with those personality traits, not that there's anything wrong with those people,
Yeah.
but they'll clash just generally because
Yeah.
you're like, because they're like, oh, because no, that's our like place in the group.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like trying to like clash over those things. When it comes to like personality psychologists generally, I feel like its theoretical basis is like, I feel like it has a psychoanalytical theoretical perspective, and instead of a practical
Practical.
perspective. I feel like it's so theoretical that
Yeah.
like the actual stuff. I'm not talking about astrology and stuff.
Yeah.
When we look at like actual personality research, I feel like it doesn't go into what practically happens in reality.
Yeah, but I feel like that's because the personality itself is such a complicated topic that you can't really, it's not really like, it can't be a one size fits all ever. You can't really apply it to everybody. There will always be an exception because everyone's different. So it's like, it's more of a theoretical to think like, okay, this is possible, but there's less of an opportunity for it to be put in practically. And it's really hard to study a personality as well. Like, if you ask, like, some personality psychologists, they talked about how they research, and they do it like they observe. They think that the most valid way is to observe someone. But even then, when you're observing someone, they ask them to attach this audio thingy.
You mean a mic?
Yeah, that thing.
Audio
Thing.
thingy.
Technology, Kazi.
That's why our audio is so good.
This is why audio is terrific. A1. But yeah, they attach the microphone, so then the person already knows that they're being observed. They won't necessarily act the same way they would if they didn't know that the mic was there. But then if you observe them without them knowing, that's also not ethical. So you can't really. And then they also ask the people that they're observing what they think they are, like, about their personality. But then they'll ask someone else, like a close friend or a close family member, and the close friend or family member will probably think something completely different. So there's a lot of like mix and match and stuff. Like, someone can say like, I'm not funny at all, and then their friends and family can say like, they're really humorous and witty. So how do you know who to believe? Is it that the person who has that personality, are they more accurate because they know themselves, or are the close friends and family members more accurate because they observe them and you can't really observe your actions as
I don't
much?
think you have the same personality with everyone you interact with. I feel like you switch personalities through. Like,
That's
if you
also fair.
like, I feel like if the same person is with their friends and with their family, I feel like their extroversion will like completely switch. Like, if someone's super extroverted and stuff, they like to be like completely alone at home.
Okay. Yeah.
So I feel like it depends on the people you're with.
That's fair.
I feel like it
That's
just
fair.
flips kinda. And also I feel like some people are more, I'm not saying this as a negative or a positive, but I feel like some people, when they're in certain friend groups or stuff, they can like quickly change personalities. Like, they're used to speaking to everyone a specific way and portraying themselves as a certain way. So like switching up those personalities and like
Okay, that's fair. Like, I act different between two friend groups or something like that. But your core personality doesn't change, is the point. Because you can shift your personality. Like, I watched this discussion, and it was like, you can shift your personality according to situation, or according to friend groups in this case, or like work and school and home. But your core personality does not change. Like, it's an example was that, like, an introvert who usually doesn't like speaking, or just likes to stay like within themselves, but then like an issue that they really care about is brought up, so then they'll start speaking and they'll be more extroverted about it, maybe to defend a friend, maybe something's happening to a close friend and they want to defend them, so then they will shift to a more extroverted kind of way of speaking just for that situation, but at their core they will still be an introvert. Or an extrovert could, not want to go to, not like have this, want to go into a more introverted state where they don't want to interact with people as much. But that doesn't mean that at the core they are not an extrovert, if that makes sense.
I guess so.
Like, your core personality usually doesn't shift. Like, even in the Big Five theory, it's that it changes a little bit as you grow older. Obviously, when you go into adulthood, obviously your traits and stuff change. You might become more, like, there's an increase in openness to experience and conscientiousness, a slight decrease in neuroticism. But your core personality doesn't really change that much.
Are you a nature versus nurture girl? Which side are you on?
No, I think it's both. I
You
think
think
it's a
it's both?
combination of both.
Mm.
Like you might have the genes for something, and then your experiences will influence how much that gene is expressed.
Mm.
It won't just be if you have the gene, then you're like that, or if you're raised in a certain way, doesn't necessarily mean you will be like that. Like if you have two siblings, they will be different. You will see the differences between two siblings, even though they're raised in the same
I
environment.
feel like genetics has an influence, but I feel like mainly it's just nurture.
Mm-hmm.
That's what my opinion is.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like genetics have a
Mm-hmm.
they like they like have an influence on
Mm-hmm.
like who you'll be, but I don't think they can like compete with like how much like your personality is formed by like like your home life and like
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. So I feel
Mm-hmm.
like they just have an influence. I don't feel like they play an active role in
Mm-hmm.
personality development as opposed to the nurture side, which is like an active role in
Mm-hmm.
personality development.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's how that goes. I feel like I feel like the I feel like I feel like the I feel like going towards the nurture side is healthier as well, because like
Mm-hmm.
the extreme of the nature side is eugenics.
Yeah.
So like that was the basis of I mean that was the basis of basically every eugenics movement. So
Mm-hmm.
that was the basis of Nazi Germany too,
Mm-hmm.
where they wanted to create the perfect race.
Yeah.
So they selected people for certain things, and then they used to um, have kids with certain people, and certain
Mm-hmm.
people weren't allowed to have kids because they wanted to pass down the most perfect traits.
Mm-hmm.
So then I think as a society we need to be able to accept the nurture side more and be
Mm-hmm.
more sympathetic towards people.
Mm-hmm.
And then same when it comes to what mindsets are. So
Mm-hmm.
learning about what fixed and open mindsets are.
Mm-hmm.
So changing mindsets, so like fixed towards what intelligence means, for example, and
Mm-hmm.
then being like, if I work hard enough, I can maybe try to get my grades up or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like having a fixed mindset about what personality is can be harmful in either
Mm-hmm.
way,
Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't leave room for change.
because it
Or
doesn't leave room
improvement.
for change. But because we're talking about science here,
Mhm.
science needs to be open for everything.
Yeah.
So let's say even the the nature part is
Mm-hmm.
completely true, and even if we're uncomfortable with the idea, science is true no matter how uncomfortable we get or um, how unethical the conclusion is. So
Mm-hmm.
while I think while I think personally yes that
Mm-hmm.
nurture more um, is more imperative in personality development, and yes, most of the research does show
Mm-hmm.
that nurture is more important in personality development. We also need to recognize that there is a very clear bias here,
Mm-hmm.
because because in history when we have accepted the nature side, it hasn't really gone down that well.
Yeah.
So as people who believe in science, we need to be open to
Mm-hmm.
conclusions no
Mhm.
matter what their ethical basis is. We need to be science is science no
Yeah.
matter what our bias is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like when you're talking to other people, they see you in a different light than you see yourself?
Yes, but I also don't know how accurate my image of myself is because
There it is.
because I tend to one of the things I do is greatly underestimate my abilities. So, and I don't know if that's because I know my abilities more or just because I put myself down. Yay! But I mean, it depends because I think that people tend to observe your behaviors in a way that you can't through a slightly more objective lens, and maybe the conclusions that they come to are more accurate sometimes, but sometimes it's just that you know who you are inside and you know what your intentions are the most, so maybe but I think there's always a difference between how other people see you and how you see yourself.
Mm.
But I don't know how much truth there is to each. I guess it depends on situations.
I guess it depends on the situation, and it depends on who's viewing you as well, and
Yeah.
what you're.
Because my closer friends will know that I don't shut up usually, except on a podcast. But Kazi has tried very hard to get me to speak, and I am speaking in this episode, so credit. But my close friends will generally say that I talk a lot actually, but people who don't really know me that well will be like, oh, she's always so quiet, and and I don't know, that's the case with a lot of people, but I'm just saying that it depends on who is viewing you. Even my parents have a different idea of me than my friends do, because I tend to open up more when I'm around my friends rather than when I'm around my family.
well, your self-image is going to get muddled by self-criticism,
Yeah.
regardless of who you are. It just depends on how intrusive that self-criticism is. I feel like no matter who you are, I feel like by the way people act about, but with the by the way with the people
So
that
the
who
act, yes.
when people act with you in a certain way, you can tell how people see you. Like for example, when someone honestly, like in their heart of heart, like believe like they're ugly or something. So let's say like they are like, oh, I look like the worst thing I have ever seen in my life. But let's say that person is getting preferential treatment everywhere they're going, and they are receptive to that. So I feel like I feel like subconsciously and consciously we're in a place of that. Yes, we are ugly. I don't like seeing myself in the mirror. I think I'm the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. But on an unconscious, but if we're going into super Freud terms, if we're going on an unconscious level, there is a certain reception that yes, people are treating me or looking at me in a different way than other people are being treated. So let's talk about like light-skinned people. Like let's say a very light-skinned person is like, I'm the ugliest person that has ever lived on the face of this planet, and they see themselves being treated differently because they have lighter skin, and that has nothing to do with looks or anything, but just generally in people's minds. We tend to treat people differently who we think are attractive, and generally people tend to think that light-skinned people are more attractive than darker-skinned people. So when we're talking about things like this, just generally, I think on an unconscious level, you know what society thinks about you and what you think about yourself. So same thing when you're talking about body image. So let's say you're like a girl or a guy, honestly. Let's say you're like super skinny and you're like, oh, I hate the way I look. I hate the way my face looks. You at least on an unconscious level, you know that you're being treated differently from an overweight person because that's how society is structured. Yeah. So I feel like there's a discrepancy between how other people see you and how you see yourself.
That's fair. Yes.
Gule, what's your role in a friend group?
Well, I'm known as the mother.
That's accurate.
Or the therapist I have been referred to.
Okay, what kind of role do you think people assign you with, and what kind of role do you want to play, and what kind of role do you relate with the most?
You really calling me
There are
out
three
like
questions. There are three separate questions here.
Say it again.
Okay. What kind of role do people assign you with usually?
Okay.
What kind of role do you relate with the most? And what kind of role do you want to play yourself?
Okay. The role that I'm usually assigned is usually one of the caretaker. I don't know if that happens on purpose or if it just happens because I tend towards that, because I worry a lot about my friends, because they tend to give me a lot of things to worry about, Kazi. Okay. Anyways. But usually I take on like the role of the caretaker. I'm trying to people pleaser. I'm trying to make sure that everyone's happy or everyone's satisfied, which isn't always possible. It's not necessarily healthy, but I'm just saying that's the way it is. And I relate with it, obviously, because I've done it for as long as I can remember. But I don't think there's really a discrepancy there because, like, how do you know if you relate with something because it's actually who you are, or you relate with it because you've been doing it your whole life? Because I know that I've been doing it my whole life, right? I'm not 100% sure if I have the traits because I've been doing it, or I've been doing it because I have the traits. Like, how do you... It's like chicken before the egg or egg before the chicken, basically. It just keeps going in circles. How do you know which one came first? So, what's your role in a friend group?
I don't know. What would you say my role in a friend group is? I don't know how to place that.
I don't know how to play... Well, I mean, you're the one that, like, I feel like, at least, that people would come to calm down and have a nice laugh. Like if I'm worried or, like, someone else in our group is worried, like, sitting with you in, like, the school ground and just joking around usually really helps. So I feel like that's, like, what you
I'm the clown.
Not the clown, man, no.
I am Boo Boo the
Kazi,
fool.
why are you like this? Just because you make people laugh doesn't mean you're the clown. That's
so
not
I'm
what
the
it
clown.
means. Kazi, no.
I feel like sometimes it happens unconsciously, but sometimes you make the conscious decision to be some type of person, like in a classroom. So I feel like sometimes you're like, okay, I'm gonna make the conscious decision to be the funny person in this classroom today.
Okay. Do you do that?
What?
Do you do that?
Some days. Okay, so some days so some days I'm like, usually not, usually it just happens like subconsciously, but sometimes I'm like, today is the day, I'm just going to be upset today. I'm going to go to school, I'm not going to talk to anyone. Today I'm going to be upset.
Okay.
Today is the day I have decided.
Okay. So you just decide to be upset.
I should randomly like, you know what, today किसी से नहीं बात करनी मैंने, today I'm just randomly going to be upset.
But randomly or because you're upset about something?
Because you're upset about something, but it's also a decision where you're like, I can talk, but will I just be upset today? Today is the day. I'm just not going to talk to anyone.
Okay.
So I feel like sometimes, some days, at least for me, you just take the decision to act differently. Sometimes you're like, I'm a quirky girl.
Yeah, okay.
I act differently sometimes. Today I'm going to be quiet.
Okay. Is that healthy?
It's not.
Okay. Okay, I didn't count the knots, but if anybody counted those, please let me know what Kazi is saying. Okay.
It keeps things interesting.
Okay.
I feel like that's not that uncommon though. I feel like sometimes you take, I don't know where it comes from, and it's not like you're writing down, today I'm deciding to be sad today. It just, I don't make the decision where I'm like, oh, I'm making a decision like I'm signing, like I'm choosing my subjects or like signing a check or something.
Yeah.
In your brain, it just automatically like, and you can see it happening. You're like, okay, today is the day I'm going to be upset. Okay. Upset? Okay, upset. Okay. So that's, okay. So today, okay. It's not like a choice you're making because there are like certain advantages or like disadvantages to that at least from my experience, for that certain day. It's just that your brain one day, like some random day is like, okay, today is the day, and I'm like, okay, today is the day.
Or maybe it's just that you were suppressing your feelings so long that your brain was like, dude, we gotta feel something here. So I think we should be sad because you've bottled up these emotions for a while.
Really? Today? Okay. Today? Okay. So that makes sense.
I mean, that's what happens when you fill a bottle, Kazi, and you keep pouring in, and you never pour it out.
Don't come at me like that. Don't come at me. How important do you think self-confidence is? On a scale of things, where does self-confidence come?
Okay, so I found out the difference between self-confidence. Why am I like this? Self-confidence and what's the other word? Self-esteem. So self-confidence is how much you trust yourself, like to get things done, to work, to do something. And self-esteem is your worth. So you could trust yourself to get the job done, like if you have work or something, you can trust yourself to get it done on time or to do it fine, but you still might have low self-esteem and feel like you're not worthy of like the reward that comes with that, for example. So there's a difference, which I did not know, and it was pretty interesting. But I think like self-confidence is really important, because if you can't trust yourself to do things, then you tend to not do them. like if you don't trust yourself to get work done, that will usually bring up things of like anxiety or extra frustration or irritability, or it will hinder you from getting the job done when maybe you could have done it. Like if your job is to I don't know, actually no, I was going to give an example, but
I feel like there needs to be, I feel like self-confidence is given more importance than it needs to be. I feel like we need to talk more about, I feel like yes, talking about self-confidence is really important, but I feel like too much self-confidence is unhealthy too, because then we're going to narcissism territory. Too much self-confidence is also unhealthy. And this is what I talked about on the previous episode too, where I talked about feeling all your emotions is healthy. Sometimes criticizing yourself is healthy too. That's not unhealthy. You don't have to feel like I need to support myself all the time, I'm the best all the time. Going on Instagram, seeing any psychology or motivational page, it will always be like your self-confidence, be like this, there's nothing wrong with you, you are the best, look at these 4 tips to make you feel like your self-confidence is better. Yes, Kule. I'm calling out your Instagram page.
Thank you.
But my point is that we don't talk about, and this is one of my biggest problems with how people view psychology and how people view mental health generally today. We don't talk about the importance of feeling all of our emotions. We don't talk about how it's important to feel sad sometimes. We don't talk about how that you don't have to be happy all the time. Sometimes it's healthy to feel sad. It's
so like
okay
not enough
to feel
focus
sad.
On the negative spectrum, too much focus on the positive.
Exactly, too much focus on the positive spectrum. The negative spectrum is part of the spectrum. Going into the negative spectrum is part of a healthy brain. You have to be able to go through those emotions, because if you're not going through those emotions at those points and you're convincing yourself that you need to be happy all the time, it's going to get unhealthy. And it already is unhealthy if you're forcing yourself to be happy all the time. It's not healthy. Sometimes you feel jealous, sometimes you feel sad, sometimes you're going to feel angry.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're going to feel like you're tired, and that's healthy and that's normal. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to feel those things sometimes, and it's healthy to feel those things sometimes. That's how we're designed to work. We're not designed to work as like creatures which are like happy 24/7. That is not healthy. And when we're talking about self-confidence, like again, there needs to be like a
middle ground
between absolute self-criticism and between narcissism.
Yeah.
And there's like a middle ground there where you're like, okay, I'm not doing horribly, but how can I do this better?
Yes. Yeah. That's fair. And like I think it's more helpful to like after I've watched the thing about the difference between self-esteem and self-confidence, it's like self-confidence is supposed to be your trust in yourself, right? So it should be in the middle ground in the sense that if you fail or if you do something not that well and you face criticism, you should trust yourself to be able to improve or something like that. It shouldn't just be that you trust yourself to be the best at everything. You should trust yourself to fall and then get back up, and you should trust yourself to be able to move forward. And I'm not really sure about like the connection between self-confidence and self-esteem. I know it's possible to trust yourself to get things done, but also not feel like you're worth that stuff. But I don't really understand that, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, because like self-esteem is like, it's supposed to be basically like how worthy am I of the praise that I'm getting right now, or how worthy am I? Like if you, suppose you get like good marks on a test, you might have a low self-esteem, so you won't necessarily feel as happy about it because you think you didn't deserve that, even though you trusted yourself to get the marks in the first place. So that's a pretty like interesting and weird thing.
I feel like just on closing remarks, like the important part here is to recognize that a healthy like brain like needs to experience all the facets of your like emotional spectrum and your personality spectrum.
Yeah.
So let's say you're like let's take a good example. Let's say like you're the mom of the group, or you're like the main person who's like I'm gonna help everyone. I want to be like whatever your thing is. It is okay for you to be like, I can't help anyone today. I'm upset. I need someone to help me.
Yeah.
I'm not in the mood.
Yeah.
It's okay to like feel your entire spectrum. And then that goes for like, let's say like the clown. Like,
I didn't call you the clown. Okay, stop it, Kazi.
it's okay to be like, today I'm not like in a mood to like make jokes and stuff. Like, I don't want to make jokes. I'm sad today. I don't want to do any of
It's
that
like,
today.
it's not your responsibility to force yourself to be happy and make jokes for everybody. And it's also not your responsibility to be available for everyone's emotions. Like, self-care is also important.
So that's what we're talking about when we talk about personalities. And when we're talking about personalities, I wouldn't advise going off of astrology, just making your friend groups and stuff like that, or going off of Myers-Briggs, or even going off of
the Big Five.
The Big Five, which is Big Five is the only one that psychologists actually are like, okay, this one's like not that bad.
Yeah.
So like even going off of Big Five, I don't think is appropriate. You know who you're going to be friends with. Just trust yourself. Trust yourself to know who you're going to be friends with. And then when you're looking at toxic traits in friendships episode, you can look at our episode on toxic relationships. You can look at what kind of things are unhealthy.
Yeah.
Recognizing those unhealthy things comes after. You can't judge someone based on their like sign or like their Myers-Briggs like personality type to like be able to identify what their faults are or like what their what things like you want, what things like are not compatible between you.
Yeah. Okay, I hope that episode was helpful, and Kazi got me to discuss things which was supposed to be impossible, so and of course we're very qualified. We know people with personalities. We have personalities, allegedly.
We have personalities. Me and Gule have at least a combined 37 years of experience on this topic, because we both have personalities.
Yes, exactly. That's how science works. Yes. Okay. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.